Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today, I'm talking about my favorite model of the AR-15 M16 of all time. My favorite one of all time was the XM16E1. The XM16E1 was the first rifle that was issued to the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. Now, if we go back in time a little bit, the first one that we saw over in Vietnam, or even in use, was the Model 01. This was the first model that went to the Air Force. This was not really what you would call a finalized version. It was not what the Army wanted. But around 1965, when General Westmoreland requested that all ground elements in Vietnam be equipped with the new rifle, the Army had some changes that it wanted to have done to the rifle. So the Model 01 went to the XM16E1. Now, XM, experimental model. Basically what that means is this was not an adopted rifle. There was no TDP. It was what we refer to as commercial off the shelf. Now, the changes that they wanted from the Model 01 to the Army's version of this rifle, first, they wanted a stronger flash hider. This one here was a lot more flimsy. They wanted a stronger flash hider. Modification to the receiver. The original rifle had a removable front pivot pin. The Army did not want that because they knew soldiers were going to lose it. So they wanted a captive pivot pin. So you basically saw this rib that comes across here. You see the front pivot pin. It's held in place by a detent, so it can't be lost. Next and probably most significant was the bolt closure device. Now, the bolt closure device was controversial from Gene Stoner, from everybody. The rifle was designed, it did not need one. There was no need to have an external link that was from the bolt to be slammed forward. However, the military said there was a psychological need to have some kind of a link between the user and the bolt to close it in an emergency. So they requested the forward bolt assist. Now, forward bolt assist, by Gene, according to Gene Stoner, was more of a detriment because it would cause more problems than it would ever solve. In fact, I can't even guess how many rounds I've shot over for my career, working in 31 countries, working for manufacturers, training overseas. I have yet to ever see a situation where the forward assist would come in handy. Because if you look at even the M14, if you look at the manuals, it says if the bolt fails to close, you get that round out of there. If the bolt doesn't close, we call that a clue. It says there's something wrong. And if you start trying to slam that back into place, you're looking for a problem. There's something wrong. You get that round out of there. So by trying to slam that bolt forward, you're causing more problems. So you're looking for more problems. Now, today, people don't trust anymore. Rifles load themselves, so they have to do press checks. They load it, then they got to open it up, check it, and then they do these press checks. So the real purpose of the forward assist these days is merely nothing to do with its mechanics. It's because now people have to check to see if their rifles are loaded. Where for all those years that we used them, we knew if we put the magazine in and hit the bolt release that it was going to load itself. We don't trust that anymore. So, but the forward bolt assist was it was against the wishes of the designer. Even Colt at the time said it was a bad idea, but the Army wanted it, so the Army got it. They wanted to improve charging handle. This triangular charging handle was a lot harder to get to, so they wanted to improve the charging handle. And also, the original rifles that went to Vietnam were a 1 in 14-inch twist. The Army needed to change to a 1 in 12 because of being able to stabilize tracers in the Arctic. 1 in 14 was ideal for the Vietnam environment, but this rifle had to be used in other engagements other than just Vietnam, so they went with the 1 in 12. Now, this rifle was in service from 1964 to 1967. Now, this rifle here had a lot of problems during the Vietnam War until it was fixed and turned into the M16A1, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Now, the first time this rifle was ever used in combat was the Battle of Ia Drang Valley in 1965. I had the opportunity to talk to General Moore, Hal Moore, when I was doing a white paper for Picatinny Arsenal on his opinion of this rifle in that battle. And according to him, this rifle was significant in their ground combat because he said with the M14, with the close quarter battles, they never would have been able to fight like they did. They needed to have the accurate suppressed fire that the M16 would provide, that the M14 would not. So this was a significant enhancement. He felt his troops' firepower, both individually and on a unit level. However, when they had the first time by, when General Westmoreland said he wanted all ground elements in Vietnam to be equipped with this new rifle, Secretary of Defense McNamara ordered Ordnance Corps to get this rifle ready for service. Well, Ordnance Corps wanted their M14 at all costs. So they disobeyed that order and they put this rifle into service. So this rifle never went through any kind of a development process. So once it went into service, It was designed around the IMR propellant. All the rifles that were developed up until 1965 or so were utilizing the IMR propellant, which it was designed around. It had a cyclic rate around 650, 700 rounds a minute. That's how it was designed. The military decided they were going to switch to ball propellant. Ball propellant reaches the same peak pressures, but does it significantly faster. So you go from a rate of fire of, say, 650 rounds a minute up to nearly 1,000 rounds a minute. What did that do? It caused failures to extract. It caused parts breakage, and it also caused some additional fouling, and the guns weren't provided with cleaning kits. Another issue that happened during the Vietnam War with these rifles initially was the failure to chrome plate the bores in the chambers. Basically, the most serious malfunctions that happened in Vietnam with this rifle were caused by corroded chambers, where once there was pitting in the chamber, the cartridge case would expand. It would get caught in those pits. It would cause failure to extract, where the rim would actually get sheared off, which were the most serious malfunctions. Now, the military knew of these problems. They knew of the fact the rifle wasn't compatible with the new ammunition. In fact, when Colt was producing these rifles, they told the military that they could not meet the cyclic rate requirements with the new propellant, so they couldn't deliver the rifles. So Uncle Sam decided he was going to send only lots of IMR propellant to Colt, so the rifles would be qualified at Colt and under proper conditions. Then when they got to Vietnam, they would give them the ammunition that was causing the problems. So this rifle did have problems, and initially those problems were caused by ammunition. It was caused by the lack of development. It wasn't until 1968 when there was a congressional hearing where there was an investigation on why these rifles were malfunctioning. At that point, the conclusion of the committee was the Army's handling of this entire program was basically criminal negligence. They knew of the problems. They knew the guns were malfunctioning. They knew it was going to happen. They did nothing. The troops who were in prior to 1968, a lot of them despised the rifle because the rifle did malfunction. They had failures to extract. They had broken bolts. They had broken extractors. They had bolt carrier bounce. They had light strikes where during fully automatic they get off one shot, and the guns wouldn't work on fully automatic. After 1960, the congressional hearings, the rifles were to be repaired. They were to be developed, and the problems were to be solved. And how did that happen? Basically, what they had to do is they had to create a rifle or design it so it would work around ball propellant. As we previously stated, when you use ball propellant, you get a much higher peak pressure, so it's much faster. So you're getting a very higher cyclic rate. So things that had to be changed. First was the barrel. You had the failures to extract because of the corrosion and the pitting. First they chrome plated the chamber, and then they went to the entire bore and chamber. That solved the most significant problems that the rifle had. The next thing was to deal with the cyclic rate. So a couple things were done. First, the gas port was changed to a smaller diameter, lets in less gas, so the rifle was gassed properly with the higher port pressures caused by the ball powder. The next thing was changed was the buffer. The buffer was changed from the Edgewater buffer to a one with 5 weights. The one with the 5 weights, basically that prevented bolt carrier bounce with a higher rate of fire. So that eliminated the light strikes. The bolts were replaced with newer bolts that were shot peened. It made them stronger so they could deal with the higher rate of fire that was caused by the ball propellant. They also had changed some of the other aspects of it, such as the bolt carrier. The initial bolt carriers you see in this one were chrome plated. They changed out of the chrome plating because at the time the chrome plating process was not perfected. If it wasn't done properly, you would have cracks in there. Once you had cracks in there, moisture would get in there. It would cause embrittlement. It would cause corrosion. Unlike today, where you have basically, that problem is totally gone, and chrome, in my opinion, is the best bolt carrier finish that there is. They went to a manganese phosphate. They went to a better finishing process to make the bolts harder. And once those were implemented, they were implemented in stages. They would be doing retrofits. Again, new barrels, change the buffers, change out the bolt carrier groups. So basically, the XM16E1 rifles were all, at that time, they were retrofitted, whether they were in the field or when they got back, they went into armories and they were updated. And once these implementations got put into place, the problems went away. So around 1968, after this problem was corrected, the problems with the M16 went away. And now we go to 1968. 1968, a new rifle was adopted, the M16A1. The M16A1 basically was the XM16E1 with all of its enhancements. And it came that way. And the difference was, you see, it's M16A1, not XM. So this is now a adopted rifle with a TDP, with specifications. We have a new service rifle. So basically what we did here Because of the issues with the lack of cleaning kits, a new stock was made with a trapdoor in the back so you could store a cleaning kit. You had the updated buffer. You had an updated receiver extension. Lower receiver, there was issues with the rifles inadvertently being magazine being released. They put a fence that went all the way around the magazine release to prevent accidental release of the magazine. You had the improved fire control group, which with a stronger disconnector. The bolt carrier manganese phosphate. You had the new the bolt that was shot peened for strength. Looking up front, we now have a fully chrome-plated bore and chamber on the barrel, which eliminated the corrosion issues. We switched over to a new gas tube. The gas tube initially was made of a material that would corrode, so they went with a stainless steel gas tube, which basically eliminated the issue with the corrosion of that as well. And also, we changed the muzzle device. The muzzle device went from a 3-prong to a bird cage. Now, there's a couple of reasons for getting rid of the 3-prong. Number one was the fact that it would get caught on brush and everything is, like the elephant grass and such, it would get caught on foliage. Two, it was being used to open up crates with wire. They're basically sticking the wires through the muzzle device and twisting it, and it was causing barrels to bend. So there's a lot of reasons. Some of them weren't necessarily mechanical. Some are just dealing with the lowest common denominator. So basically, the M16A1 is what replaced the M16A2. All of the additions and all the improvements were into this rifle. And when this rifle came out, the problems went away in Vietnam. So the guys who came after 1968-69, they encountered very little problems, if any, with the rifles. But overall, my favorite of all the rifles was the XM16E1. And I guess the reason because of it was this was the first one that was adopted by the U.S. military. It was the first one that was used in Vietnam. The first time this was used, again, as I said, was the Battle of the Ia Drang Valley. It's where it proved its worth. This rifle was undoubtedly the rifle for the Vietnam War. It was perfect. It was lightweight, high rate of fire, an extremely effective cartridge. It worked very well. But the problems were it went into service underdeveloped. You never conduct your trials, you never conduct your R&D in the field. The problem was the M14 was the wrong rifle. It couldn't keep up with the AK-47. We needed our own assault rifle. This did everything that it was supposed to do, but you were fighting Army politics. You were having people who were willing to ignore problems to prove a point so they would get their M14 back. So now we look at the future. They've been trying to replace this rifle for over 60 years, and they haven't. There's a reason for that. This is still the best rifle that's out there. The operating system, the human engineering, it's still the best that's out there, in my opinion. I've had the opportunity to pretty much use most modern military assault rifles in the world. These are still my favorite. This also represents what the rifle was supposed to be. It was supposed to be a lightweight rifle, where if you look at what we have now, the M16A4s, those weigh about the same as the damn M14 does now. This was the original lightweight rifle. It was fully automatic. It had the field sights. This was a true combat rifle prior to the use of all the optics. But this rifle during the Vietnam War, when it was initially adopted, if the right ammunition was used, this rifle worked properly. But the issue with the corrosion of the chamber and the lack of cleaning, those all contributed to this problem. Overall, if you would have had the chamber that was chrome plated and got rid of that problem, the significant problems this rifle would have been taken care of. But with the overgassing, the higher cyclic rate, that caused other problems with the failures to extract the broken parts and such. But unfortunately, it took a congressional hearing to hold the Army accountable for their failure to act on developing this rifle. It caused the soldiers to lose faith in the rifle because they saw the malfunction. Most soldiers, they'll say this is a piece of shit because they saw it malfunction. They don't understand why it malfunctioned. They don't care. All they know is when they used it, it didn't work. Hopefully what my videos will do is it'll explain to them there's a reason why they failed. And it was not the design of the rifle. It wasn't Gene Stoner. It wasn't Colt. It was what the military did and how they conducted it and the decisions that they made, which cost lives. And once the rifle got fixed and I was able to work with the ammunition, and it was working in the environment, it became the best rifle in U.S. military history and the longest serving. So I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, please click like, please subscribe, and even better, share.